Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Fantastic Four Issue 4 2022. Yeah. Very nice cover there. And actually, this cover does kind of fit with what we learn and what's going on in this issue. And the thing is, we're like, okay, what did the Fantastic Four do to get into such a kind of crazy state that they are in right now? And the answer works very well. And it sucks, but you can see a lot of the different sides and what kind of got everybody to pair off in the groupings that they did. So we pretty much start and we see that the Fantastic Four are fighting these like aliens and whatnot, and as we're going through, we learn that they're from the negative zone. And let's see. Like, we see that Ben's like, yeah, the worst thing that probably happened to me was getting turned into a rock monster, right? But the worst thing that happened was 5 months ago, saying it's always now as, like, the negative zone's invading the Earth. And that's really great artwork. Just look at Ben just smashing Sue, doing her great things. The torch blasting off in that one direction, and Reed using his stretch powers. And then we see that the kids are in the building, and they're like, why do we always have to, like, stay up here where it's safe? It's like, I get that. Like, I do love having younger characters, to that way I'm like, I understand why you are perturbed of not being in the battle and doing these things. However, you are probably some of the most experienced ones to handle and help out Nikki and Joe and make sure that they're safe in this kind of respective place. It's like understanding that, yes, it's probably the safe spot, but you are also the one responsible to help out these others that aren't as usually versed in these situations. Now, granted, they did fight in, like, death matches and shit, so they aren't helpless, but yet you need to help them to understand what kind of shit can go down. And, of course, they're talking about how Alicia's down there. It's like, she was down there when it started, man. And Nikki and Joe are like, yeah, Joe's like, yeah, I'd take 1,000, and Nikki's like, I'd take down 1,001. And then I love how we actually get the counting. Like, that's just writing that I enjoy. Where they're like, hey, have we got like a count, honey? And Reed's like, I estimate like about 1,500 invaders, plus or minus 100. Joe's like, great, we know approximately how many people want us dead. Do we have any idea why they want to kill us? And then Reed's speculating, either they're like, any plots that they have, they need to kill us to, like, do. Number 2, they don't want to kill us, but we're in their way. It's like, yeah, those are two of the pretty much biggest kind of like, theories on what would be going on. And then, of course, Ben's going all clobbery time on everything and really bashing out. I just love the artwork and showing how much, like, he can dish out and what he can take. And, of course, Ben's like, listen, we're against an army. This isn't sustainable. So we need to come up with a new strategy. And I'm like, yes, Ben, and that's very smart there. Okay. Then we get to Kentucky 5 months later as we see Reed, Sue, and Johnny kind of getting together. Reed being like, oh, it's nice to see you, Jonathan, though it's kind of more than I expected. Talking about how the ladies love the torso, and like all he had was pretty much his flame-proof trunks. And he's wondering if Ben is a dome now. He's like, listen, it's textured like him, but I suspect he's alive. I don't think Ben would be able to survive what this would be. I'm like, yeah, blowing up kind of like a giant-ass dome would be kind of hard. And then, of course, Sue's able to sense their EM fields in there, and that their thoughts are racing, and that they pretty much should start digging. It's like, yeah. So we shift back to then, and we see the main players who are narrating is Ben, as we can see in the Cragley tech boxes, and then Sue in the kind of regular-looking text boxes. Let's see. Ben's trying to do pretty much team-up stuff with Johnny. Sue's pretty much commenting on that she can hear that they're losing from her husband. even though that people aren't really that well versed with kind of like the differences. That Ben's idea is to like do pretty much like a telephone pole, like softball the monsters, and then Reed pulls out one last trick like he always does. He's like shouting at them, theoretically possible, can't risk their lives maybe. Paralyzing 6 months worth of work in seconds. Pardon me, I'm getting over an illness. Let's see. Yeah, they were about to do the softball maneuver, which Sue was like lifting him up and everything. Reed tells him, no, that won't be enough. Drop them, Sue, yes, but push the invaders central to the Baxter building while lifting us all clear. And then he goes, Ben, Alicia, there's no time. Do you trust me? What that kind of question is that? Of course I do, Stretcher. If you've got something that fixes this, Reed, you use it. And then, of course, Sue didn't know. And he's like, right. And then he clicks, and we see it disappear. And, of course, Sue says again she didn't know. This beautiful 2-page spread. Love the artwork and how you're able to see the Fantastic Four so clearly, and also the devastation that has happened with the Baxter building. And then Johnny's kind of celebrating, but Sue asks the obvious question of where the fucking building is. And, of course, everyone in there. He says they're safe, I assure you. The city and the invaders have simply transitioned through a novel heliocentric temporal gateway. And, of course, that's kind of the scientific answer, where Reed is then talking about how there's clearly the universe doesn't have a center, since everything's so relative, and that most of the time they go for somatic kind of centric excuse me, time travel use, where you are the 0 point. No matter how far you travel in time, you always arrive at the same place. Makes sense because it's easier to kind of do it that way. Unfortunately, invaders can defend against that. He reasoned, however, they couldn't defend against an entirely new model of time travel. My equations used our sun as the center of the universe, so that I sent our invaders 6 months back in space. In time, they arrived in deep space, which is pretty smart as we see him floating, and they'd be on the other side of the solar system. And then to balance out the equation, I sent the rest of the affected areas somewhere too. I sent them to the one moment they'd be safe. 1 year from the instant they left, everyone will appear back here in New York, and they won't even know that they're gone. Now, you then have a nice page here where you see them kind of like going through the repercussions, and it's like talking about how like the world's moved on without them, and that Ben doesn't want to lose a year. It's like, but the thing is, you didn't have any other, like Reed didn't have any other available options. Now granted, I understand that you're like, why don't you call for like the Avengers or whatnot, and evidently being a vigilante was illegal in New York because that's kind of brought up as well. So then you're probably down to the police, the military, the National Guard, which of course take time to ramp up their responses and everything. Granted, getting other superheroes to help as well takes ramp up time as well. And let's see. Of course, they're like, we're not abandoning them for a year, even if they won't feel it. And he's like, my equations, they were novel, unstable. Any time travel between now and then risks altering the moment of their arrival. Too soon or too late, and they could materialize in space, in the upper stratosphere, or beneath the 12,000 kilometers of crust, mantle, and planetary core. It's like, Reed knows! Like, he's not calling her stupid, and he's not calling Ben stupid. He's showing he has thought that if I could bring them back, I could. But these are the obstacles I have in place. And sometimes he needs to talk with people through on that kind of thing to get through that, if he's got enough time to do it. And he's like, the best way is that we take the long way. That was the only option we had to stay behind in case it didn't work. I love it. Ben's like, I was going to softball him, Stretcher. Why wouldn't you let me? He's like, his plan had a .0041% chance, whereas Reed's had a 99.64% chance. And he couldn't risk it. And of course, Alicia then brings up, like, you can risk it yet again, and we're left holding the bag. It's like, okay then. We'll see how, like, if that's the case, then don't let Reed do the science stuff, and if Ben's going to try and clobber, and then gets overrun, and then, of course, we start losing bigger kind of chunks, and we get the negative zone taking up New York. Like, this wasn't, I understand that they don't want to lose time with their kids, and they don't want them out of sync of time. Completely get that. But Reed doesn't make these decisions just lightly. Now, granted, him showing the kind of, feelings that he's got is the kind of issue here, as we see throughout here. And then, of course, Reed kind of tries to interrupt Alicia and, tries to get Ben, but, Ben's like, I know you didn't just interrupt Alicia to come crying to me. And then Sue blows up at Reed. Ben blows up at Reed. Says things that she shouldn't have. He says things he doesn't regret. Of course, the city starts to blame them. They just erased a block full of people. Parents who left their kids for what was supposed to be a few hours. Orphans whose parents aren't coming home for work for a year. All the things that would kind of come from that. Kind of interesting because it's kind of like a mini blip case for this kind of scenario. And then their corporate assets getting frozen. Vehicles impounded. Didn't need the law to tell Ben that the Fantastic Four was through screwing up his life. And then we get back to now as we see them suspended. And it's like, what the hell is this? And Johnny's like, hey, I think I burned it with fire. And Reed's like, wait a minute, that could exacerbate things. Let me just kind of look at this. Uses his eye, which is a very effective use of his power and very different to kind of inspect it. He's like, oh, this is alien. They resemble Randau, the space parasite. And then gives us a little information that he was bifurcated before his planet was that he was cut lengthwise in half. And then talking about how the force of the explosion of the planet could have carried it here. Talking about that Earth got life here because of from the stars and everything, which we now know pretty much was from a dead celestial puking up stuff. And Johnny's like, ooh, space germs, that's how he lived. And it's like, yeah, that's not the craziest of things. And then Reed pretty much lays it out. It's like a fragment of a parasitic life. It landed here, saw the two things of Ben and Alicia. It's pretty much mimicking what it's found to try and survive. And it's no intelligence behind it, and it's they gotta stop it before it completely feeds on Ben and Alicia, and there's nothing left to save. And then he also takes a sample because he does believe that even if there's things that are anathemic to ours, that it shouldn't just be killed, that everything's got value. And then pretty much tells Johnny to start going on a flame on kind of thing, that it's resisting the flames. He's using himself to try and use cutting kind of implements as they're kind of getting through, as they're trying to escalate it. And then we see that Ben and Alicia are still kind of reliving the months and everything, but that it's starting to ramp it up, going from a year, 2 years, 10 years, 40 years, where Ben starts kind of being like, what the fuck, 100 years? Alicia, I couldn't see it before, but it's written all over his face. He's hurting too. As we then see, as their reactions are amplified in their memories, so is Reed's. And then he's like, I couldn't, I didn't, I'm sorry. And Ben finally comes to the realization that there ain't no bad guy here, there ain't no bad guy here. He picked the least worst option that he could. And the thing is, we get here is man, we get it. And then they, of course, wake up. They're out of everything. Reed pretty much tries to apologize again, knowing that since they've had a friendship as long as they've had, he doesn't want to lose that. He's sorry. He's not asking them to forgive him. And they're like, we're all hurting, and we just can't blame you for it anymore. Even though he took the direct action, it wasn't in a callous or malicious kind of way. And he's hurting just as much as they are, even though he doesn't show it like they do. And I think that is a very important kind of thing to hammer on. As everybody expresses their emotions in very different ways. And sometimes, even though people can be hurting about something, they will not show anything about it. And Reed, being that kind of character, really fits with his characterization. Oh, pardon me, I'm sorry. And then, of course, Ben explains how the emotions were turned up, and they were turned up on you too. And then they say that I'm the one who's stone-faced, saying that his voice is always even, so controlled. Johnny talking about how the parasite's down. Ben say that like Johnny's topless and has a mustache, and Alicia's like, that's amazing. Of course, Sue's like, yeah, I got questions about that. So then they're like, yeah, what do we do now? We actually hadn't made plans beyond finding you two. Oh, well, I suppose I wouldn't mind too much if you traveled with us for a bit. Listen, Sue, when you were at our wedding, did you get much of a chance to chat with my dear old Aunt Petunia? So it seems like they're going to visit Aunt Petunia and are now kind of back together again. So it's like, alright, cool. And then we get like pages of fan letters, which are nice to read. So, I actually really enjoyed this because it didn't take too long to get to the central conceit of what's going on and why the Fantastic Four are in the situation that they are in. And the thing is, we got answers while we still have to wait for the kind of fallout, because we still have to wait. It's been 5 months, so there's about 7 to 6 months left that they've got to wait for the building and the kids and everybody else to come back. And the thing is, the Fantastic Four have to be ready for that, for when they come back and to help out, because, Reed might have gotten the repercussions of what they're going on, but he will probably try and figure out. Now, granted, he'll at least do the science-y part, but then we've got Sue, who really has the stuff down for the corporate kind of side, and Ben with the personal kind of side, and Johnny with the flashy kind of side. It's going to need all the Fantastic Four to help them out, help the kids get back to their parents, the parents get back to their kids, all that different kind of stuff. It's a very good kind of challenge, and I'm glad it didn't take a long time to kind of get that, and the answers we got answered those questions while still leaving us more of a story to kind of go forward with the Fantastic Four in this situation until we get to the resolution with the Baxter Building and everything coming back. So I'm looking forward to that, and I really enjoyed this issue. So those are my opinions on this issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.